Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to our Junior Achievement Bahamas' alumni webinar hosted in partnership with Access Accelerator Small Business Development Center. My name is Selena Archer, and I represent Junior Achievement Bahamas, and I will be your host for this evening's session. We are thrilled to have had you join us this evening and to hear what our panelists will expand about on our innovation and how to be creative in both our careers and our business. We are delighted to have with us this evening, Khrystle Rutherford-Ferguson, who currently serves as the first female chairman of the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce and the Employers Confederation. Mrs. Ferguson is an attorney at law and heads the legal department at Fidelity Bank Bahamas Limited and is a proud JA Bahamas alumna. We also have Lashanta Smith, who is a certified digital media marketing professional and the owner of Lamoury Smith Digital Marketing Company and the HR consultant at Pineapple Business Consultancy. Lashanta is president-elect of the Bahamas Society of Human Resource Management, as well as a member of the Rotary Club Old Fort. Mrs. Smith has served Junior Achievement Bahamas in the capacity of Programs Manager for New Providence. Thank you for your service, Mrs. Smith. We also have Shana Edgecombe, and Shana is the Ecosystem Technical Coordinator for the Access Accelerator Small Business Development Center's Accelerate Bahamas project. She is also the lead creative with TREP Consulting, helping creatives and entrepreneurs map out their businesses through a focus on their profits, marketing, and processes. Ladies, we are very excited to hear from you. And again, thank you for taking the time out of your schedules to speak with us this evening. I just want to go over a few housekeeping notes before we get started. We would like to request that all of our participants keep mics muted for the duration of the speaker's presentation. You may ask questions at the end of the presentation or via chat, just type it into the chat box for each session. To ask a question at the end of our session, please raise your virtual hand and we will answer in the order that the questions are received. Remember, this presentation is being recorded and will be available for replay on the JA Bahamas Alumni Facebook group page, our alumni Instagram page, and will also be sent to you via email as well as housed on our JA Bahamas YouTube channels. We are going to put links to that momentarily into the chat. To this end, we would like to remind you that if you have your camera on, the attending audience will also be able to see you. JA Bahamas is a nonprofit youth organization with the goal of raising funds to ensure that our club programs, JA Elementary, JA for Junior, JA Aspire, which are designed for students from K-5 through grade 12, are available in every school and on every island. We will be putting a link if you wish to donate in the chat very, very shortly. Well, let's get started. Our first panelist is Mrs. Khrystle Rutherford-Ferguson, who, as mentioned earlier, serves as the first female chairman of the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce. A little bit more about Mrs. Ferguson, who started her studies at the College of the Bahamas, now University of the Bahamas, where she obtained an Associate of Arts degree in Law and Criminal Justice. Mrs. Ferguson then received her LLB with honors from the University of Buckingham, England, and completed the Bar Vocational Course at the Inns of Court School of Law, London, England. She was admitted to both the Bahamas Bar and the Bar of England and Wales. An active member of the Bar Association, Mrs. Ferguson most recently served on the Bar Council as its treasurer from June 2017 to June 2019. She is a member of the Clearing Banks Association's Legal and Compliance Subcommittee and the National Advisory Council for the Introduction of Local Government to New Providence, leading its revenue and expenditure team. Mrs. Ferguson also served as a director of the Bahamas Financial Services Board from 2014 through 2018, and served as a member of the Supervisory Committee, Audit Committee of the Teachers and Salaried Workers Cooperative Credit Union. Currently, Mrs. Ferguson, who is a mother of two, happily married, is the director of Leno Corporate Services, serving on the board, which is one of the leading financial services companies in the Bahamas. Mrs. Ferguson, come on in.
Thank you so much, Selena, for that warm welcome. It's a great, great pleasure for me to be a part of this panel discussion. JA is like a second home for me, so it's good for me to be able to contribute in any way possible. So I'm delighted to be here. I'd like to say good evening to my fellow panelists. I look forward to hearing from you all as well. We could all learn from each other. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And also good evening to all of the participants who join in to hear everything that we have to say. So Selena, again, thank you very much. And without further ado, I'd just like to give a short roadmap into what I hope to discuss with everyone this evening. And there are 4 central themes around my discussion points. As we all know, we've joined to talk about innovation, either how it applies to our business or our careers. And I'm choosing to take the path of career. I may dabble a little bit regarding the business community, seeing that I wear the hat of chair the Chamber of Commerce. So I'm sure that that will pop out throughout my discussion. But ideally, the 4 points that I'll be discussing this afternoon is what comes to mind when you hear the word innovation. Then secondly, what is innovation? Thirdly, why is innovation so important? What's all the buzz about? And then I'll round out the discussion, my part of the discussion, on how is it used in the context of one's career. So in preparing for today's panel discussion, I canvassed a few persons asking them, well, when you hear about the word innovation, what comes to mind? And some person said, well, technology, obviously, mobile devices, that sort of thing, laptops. Other person said, well, the creative arts. And a few other persons said, well, creative thought. The thought process comes to mind when I think about innovation. And 1 or 2 other individuals said most obvious to them was the orange economy. So I throw that out there for persons as I'm going through my points to just think about and ponder on what comes to mind. What is the most obvious thing that comes to mind when you hear about innovation? But simply put, all those persons would not be wrong. Innovation is a broad topic. It is wide sweeping. And it touches on all of those things that when I asked individuals, they answered. But when looking at your textbook definition, I came across a definition that said that innovation is the ability to generate ideas that create value and improve processes. And I want to underscore the create value and improve processes. Because yes, one may think about innovation and think about purely the technology or think about the business aspect of it. But innovation is all around us. It's who we are as human beings. It's what we do on a daily basis. It's everything that makes what we do easier for us. And it is, in my estimation, the ability to see beyond what is currently in front of you. That's how I approach the subject innovation. And I think I've approached it from that aspect throughout my own career. And the ideas regarding innovation, as I initially laid out, could be centered around technology. When you look at the ability to generate ideas, it could be one from looking at the Steve Jobs examples, from the Tesla examples, where you name it. The point is you are identifying an issue that may currently exist or a process that can be improved, and you are looking at the best way to improve that process. And that can impact either yourself or millions of persons. And the examples that I spoke about earlier, the Steve Jobs, billions of persons have been impacted from that level of innovation. And innovation is something that we see happen at home. So it is not a far-flung ideology that can only happen cross-border. We saw in the pandemic, once businesses had to cease their operations and persons were laid off, others thought quickly, well, how can I improve my income stream in these limited circumstances? We saw where cottage industries were created almost immediately. There was a mask mandate. What did we see? We saw that persons who may have had a creative bent were able to sew, create, innovate, make their own mask. And from that, they developed a whole new industry that had not existed before. So that rolls nicely into the point about why is innovation important. And I alluded to it before, it is all around us. It is a most sought after skill, particularly in the business community. And as it relates to our career, you may wonder, what are examples of innovative skills that can be using your imagination, the ability to problem solve, the ability to think out of the box to design something that wasn't there before, critical thinking. These are some of the soft skills that have, in many respects, gone away or have gone unnoticed and have for a while not really been appreciated rather. But we see that with changing times, that notwithstanding the hard skills are important, soft skills such as the ones I mentioned are also important. Flexibility, the ability to show that even though you are not comfortable in a situation, you can demonstrate that you can be flexible and you can adapt to your surroundings. You can discover ways to use applications and adapt that to your skill set or your surroundings. So being flexible can also help you to adjust to changing times and changing trends. The other thing that comes to mind is the ability to win over different persons or different viewpoints. So the art of persuasion, that's another skill set that is placed under the banner of innovation. So my final point, how is it used in the context of one's career? All of the points that I would have alluded to earlier, they are things that I've definitely had to take on board as I had transitioned out of a college or university environment into a work environment. Because ultimately, employers, business owners, they want to be able to see that notwithstanding a neat process may not be present at the time, they want to see that you can see beyond what is currently in front of you, that you can optimize a process, that you can build something that wasn't there before. And I've certainly had to do it in my current employment and in other spaces. So I would encourage persons on the call that in thinking about innovation simplicity, it's not just the shiny, the bright, shiny, technologically savvy things. It is more about the soft skills, about being creative and seeing how one can apply that even to one's own career. And Selena, with that, I'm open to your direction. If there are questions, if you want to proceed to the other panelists, I'm yours for the taking.
We're not getting away that easy. We did have some questions that came in through private chat as you were speaking. And at this point, we will ask for persons to raise their hand or to put messages in the chat if you'd like me to ask Mrs. Ferguson a question on your behalf. One of the questions that have come in is, could innovation get one in trouble with their superiors when trying to improve internal processes? What advice would you give to someone who is trying to improve a work process?
I don't think innovation can get you in problems with your supervisor. I believe that, there's an old adage that goes something like, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So I think in these contexts, it's not necessarily the fact that you are using innovation to improve a process internally. It's how you present it. And that has a lot to do with how it's received. Don't forget, one of the points I made under the soft skills of innovation is persuasion. So that is a way that you could win your superior over to say, look, I've identified this issue. I have come up with an alternative viewpoint or an alternative solution to it that can optimize the way that we're currently doing things. And I would encourage you to have a look at it. Now, ultimately, you are not the final arbiter, final decision maker. And I think sometimes when we have a thought or we come up with a solution, we feel so drawn to it that it has to be accepted. But sometimes you just have to go through the process and to give it over to your supervisor, knowing that that person may have more information than you do, but know that it is how you present it. So that would be my response to that question. But I think it's a good question.
Thank you. Another question that has come in, how do you use innovation to excel in your career while balancing family life?
That's another good one. Some days I don't even know, but but if I had to choose an answer really quick, I would say that's where the technology comes in. My cell phone, I live by my calendar. I have to put everything in here. And that's the part of the innovation that I have to use to stay on track. If I did not put this commitment in this evening, I probably would have forgotten about it, not because it wasn't important to me, but because there are competing priorities at times. And you do need to use all the tools that you have at your disposal so that you can put your best foot forward and so that you can stay on top of everything. Even if there's family commitment, work commitments, just use everything at your disposal. And again, that is demonstrative of the fact that innovation is all around us.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Ferguson. And one more question. I don't see any hands raised, so this may be the last question. How do you thrive in an environment set against innovation? How do you chart a career path in that situation?
I don't look at things as, I wouldn't say that things are set against innovation. Innovation happens where there is a problem. By virtue of there being an equal solution to it, that is innovation. So I think the biggest thing to get through is not looking at the glass half empty. Look at it as half full. And that little room to the top, that is your room to shine and to say, look, I have identified this issue and I think I have a solution to fix it. Even when you look at businesses, there is a healthy balance towards having goods that you want to sell to your customers and having services, and then the demand. But even that, you can't look at things as saying, okay, well, I have these goods, and if no one wants to buy it, then it just means that the goods aren't of any use. No, it means that you have the ability to pivot. Again, that's innovation. So it's looking at things from a more positive standpoint. And that's how I try to live my life. And that's how I would respond to that question. I hope I answered it.
There's nothing that came in through the chat, so I will assume that you have answered it. Thank you so much, Mrs. Ferguson. It's been a delight to reconnect again on this platform and to hear what you've had to say about innovation. We do have another question, but I would think that that would be more toward Shana Edgecombe from SBDC, because it is an SBD question. So I'm going to ask you to pop in. Does SBDC offer any programs that are geared toward innovative thinking career-wise?
So not necessarily career-wise, but definitely business-wise. We do have the SEC program that is starting next week. That's the Summer Entrepreneurship Training and Mentorship Program. And so one key component of that program is the mentorship. I think everybody needs a mentor. Mentors can definitely cut down on the amount of mistakes that you make. And so, this is a free program and people would be getting access to persons who really should be paying for their time because it's expensive. So I would definitely encourage people to go to the website. That's www.accessaccelerator.org, and they can look in the programs tab, look at the different offers, and then the SEC program is also there.
Thank you so much, Shana. I have put that information into the chat, so please feel free to visit. We are going to, again, say thank you to Mrs. Ferguson. I know that Mrs. Ferguson will be around to hear the other presenters if you have a question for Mrs. Ferguson. But our next panelist is Mrs. Lashanta Smith, an entrepreneur, marketing and HR expert, as well as a community service leader, giving back to Bahamian nonprofits like Junior Achievement Bahamas and other charitable organizations. When she is not serving her communities, marketing clients hire Lashanta to strengthen their messaging, branding, and marketing for greater impact and success. And to small and medium-sized businesses, they hire Lashanta to optimize their greatest assets, people. Before Lashanta comes in, I just want to give a reminder to please put your questions in the chat during the presentation. Afterward, we will have a question and answer segment in which you will be able to raise your virtual hands and we will answer your questions. Mrs. Lashanta Smith, please come on in.
Thank you so much, Selena, and it is a pleasure to be here and to join Mrs. Rutherford-Ferguson and Ms. Edgecombe. So I am so honored to do anything to do with Junior Achievement because, like you said, I am a JA alum and I truly enjoy this program. I will say it now, loud and proud, that I've gone from achiever to program manager, and I always knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but it was solidified when I entered 10th grade in the BEC cafeteria and we were making scented candles. I knew I still have the scar on this index finger and I knew I was in love. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a backstory. Like I said, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to take the approach of innovation in my business, but I wear two hats. So I have the digital marketing side, which I love, absolutely love, but I'm also an HR consultant. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the simple things that can cause you to be innovative or that can help you to be innovative because I think it's overlooked. Entrepreneurship can be glorified and glamorized. So it is not just coffee shops and meetups and Instagram, because as much as I love it, and I probably am guilty of it on my own Instagram, it is a lot of hard work. And I'm sure this is no secret to any one of you on this call tonight. So if you want to be innovative as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, there are just a few little things that you have to do. The first thing I want to talk to you about is not being afraid to do things differently. When I started out in business, it was out of necessity. My husband and I were passionate about business long ago. So we started a photography business together. But when I actually ventured out on my own to start a company that was my name, my face, everything, I was a part of a redundancy exercise of a local hotel you might know about. And I was in a Dallas hotel room and we had the whispers and the rumors and the emails came out and I was stuck. I was on a task force and I had to decide what I was going to do. Right then and there, I took a little piece of paper on a notepad, and doing as I've learned in Junior Achievement, I did a SWOT analysis, right? What am I really good at? What will people pay me for? What are my weaknesses? How can I make money in a short time? At that time, I had children, I had a husband, I had to figure out how to bring that money in, and social media was just catching on, like in the Bahamas. And our business, we had about 7,000 followers, and that was a question that we would always get. How do you manage to get all of these followers? What did you do? So I decided to lean in. It was not popular at the time. It was not something that was cute. People were still asking me like, so how do you make money? How does that work? And I literally absorbed as much as I could. I found every webinar, every tutorial, anything on YouTube I could find. I learned, I tried, I did all sorts of things. And then the digital marketing side came on stream. I was able to sell an offer, and then I continued to do so and grow a business. So you can't be afraid to do things differently. During that season, and ever since then, innovation for me was being the first to try things. So if there was something new that was coming out, if there was a new app or a new platform that people needed to learn, I would be the first on. I was not afraid to dive in. Now, this comes with risks, obviously, because you might not be good at it, right? It might not look the way you want it to look. It might not be perfect, but it's a part of the process. You have to be bad at something first in order to be great at it. So in doing things differently, that meant showing up on Periscope Live almost every single day, even if there was one person in the room watching me. And most of the time, that was just my husband. So it meant, pitching people, which was terrifying to me. As much as I've done the JA speech competition, I've spoken in front of others, I can be seen as extroverted. It's difficult to ask someone to invest in you. So that took practice. So don't be afraid to do things differently and to try something different. You don't want to look like everyone else, and innovation is doing it differently. So that's my first tip. Don't be afraid to do things differently. The second thing is, again, not as sexy, but very simple and usually very difficult for entrepreneurs to do. You have to get consistent. You have to get consistent. Consistency is the differentiator between good and great. You need data. You need to know what's working. You can't do something for 3 days, 3 weeks and say, I guess it didn't work. No, you have to show up every single day, record the data, buckle down and do it. Make little tweaks here and there until you get it just right. But in the effort of doing things differently, you also have to lean in and do things consistently. That's going to make the difference. So we glamorize the morning routine that we see entrepreneurs have. How many of us say that we get up at 6 a.m.? My husband gets up at 4:30, right? How many of us have that time to ourselves to organize, whether it's to meditate, to read, to pray, to exercise, whatever it is? How many of us get to clear our minds and set intentions for the day? You write a to-do list, you make a plan, and you tackle them one by one. That's consistency. Your diet, your health is your wealth. All of that, all of those things we hear and we see on the internet, it's true, but you have to be consistent. That's the difference between good and great, and that's innovation. And then the last thing, something we always shy away from, collaboration, because I don't want her to do what I'm doing. I don't want her to know what I'm doing. I don't need her to know what I'm doing. Oh, she can copy from me. If someone needs to copy from you, you have to do it first for them to copy you. That's innovation. So don't be afraid to collaborate. So many of my ideas and my offers have been tweaked and evolved and have been, improved because I was able to work with others, benefit from cross experiences and exposure, working with fellow entrepreneurs, listening a little bit more. Collaboration is so important for innovation because you can invent an amazing thing and no one wants it. You can have this amazing service or product and nobody wants anything to do with it. So if you want real feedback, get the input of others. You go further together. And that's one thing I learned, especially in my time as a program manager and working with other volunteers at that time. You have to work together to get it done. So do things differently. get consistent even when it's not sexy, and collaborate. Don't be afraid to do it together. Those are 3 simple little tips. And I promise you, innovation is just around the corner if you do those 3 things. So Selena, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thank you, Lashanta. We did have some questions that came in through private chat. Again, everyone, this is your opportunity to either raise your hands or to put questions in the chat section. So the first question is, what advice would you give to a startup just beginning to use social? How do I stand out from the crowd using innovation?
Excellent question. Again, consistency. So I would post for 30 days. Don't look at your insights. Don't look at any of the analytics. Just post. Come up with all of the crazy ideas, everything that you think you want to do. See what it feels like to execute for 30 days, and then look back and see what people like. You think you know what your target audience is. You think you know your demographic. You have no idea. Even to this day, I'm still evolving and tweaking my audiences. So you want to make sure that you get started, flex that consistency muscle, post for 30 days, and then look back at it.
Thank you. This second question is, how do I inspire innovative thinking in my workplace with my team?
Excellent question as well. So if you are trying to inspire innovation as the leader, sometimes you have to take a step back. And I say this a lot to the C-suite leaders that I've worked with in the past. We like to do the talking all the time. We like to be the loudest voice in the room and the drivers. There's a lot of things going on at all levels and a lot of great ideas, but those voices are usually stifled because we don't want to hear what they have to say. We have the experience and the knowledge, and we're ready to pour into someone. We don't have to. Ask. And sometimes you don't have to take every single suggestion or idea. Implement 1 or 2 of the suggestions that you have or that you've heard, or commend them for a great work, because you want to foster that culture of innovation and people raising their hand to say, I have an idea. Have we thought about this? But you have to get in the habit of asking. They have to be comfortable enough to ask. So quiet down a little bit, ask a little more, and you'll be surprised.
I love your answers, Lashanta. This is an interesting question. How do I protect my business if I choose to collaborate with another?
I believe in the black and white. So write it down, get a contract together, decide what makes sense to protect yourself. And then I think you still have to put some skin in the game. So you must be willing to give up some of it. But again, if you are being consistent, if you're not afraid to try things differently, and you're willing to put your all behind it, even if someone is calling me right now. Oh, sorry, someone is calling me. So you will have some skin in the game. You will, that's always a risk. Even if you posted it today and someone decided, oh, I'm going to copy that, you have to be willing to have someone copy you. It is what it is. But to protect yourself, I would do contract. And then as much as you can, try to be wise in the way that you collaborate.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. And this is the final question. I do not see any hands, so this will likely be the final question for you. Are there any entrepreneurial associations that I can join?
I think this one is better suited for Ms. Edgecombe. Maybe Shana can shed light on that. There aren't any that I'm aware of, but there are industry-specific associations that you can look into. So depending on what it is that you're a part of, maybe you can research associations for marketing, for finance, and let that lead you. But local entrepreneurial associations, maybe Shana can better answer that.
So definitely we have the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce on, so I would recommend them first.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine. And then Google your local industry association, see if anything is available. I know that there are pockets of informal organizations where, a lot of conversation happens, like Shift the Culture. And so I would definitely say that do your research, go on Facebook, ask for recommendations. You may find that for your industry, there is no formal association, but that's where networking comes about. And then you can probably find your way into like-minded people like you.
Told you she was
Selena, if I may, I was being modest there and not chiming in sooner, but definitely the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce is a home for any person, entrepreneur, business of any size. So that's sole practitioner right up to as big as your goals or your aspirations are. So within our membership, we have persons who are, as I said, sole practitioners, up to businesses that employ thousands of persons. So definitely check out the Chamber of Commerce membership application. And we're always happy to help. And we have an awesome staff of persons who would be willing to give some direction on where to go, where to find information if it's information that we don't have ourselves. Our network is very extensive. So we're always looking for the opportunity to share that.
Thank you so much, ladies. I am also just going to put a little. Sorry, I muted myself. Thank you so much, ladies. I am also going to put a plug in there for the, based on that question for the JA Bahamas Alumni Association, because again, as was mentioned, networking is so important as entrepreneurs and also as sole business operators. So that's a good place to go. I put links again in the chat. Thank you so much, Mrs. Smith, Mrs. Ferguson, and Shana Edgecombe for chiming in with the questions and the presentation so far. We are going to have Miss Edgecombe come in. Don't want to get myself in trouble as our third speaker this evening. And I'm very excited to hear what Ms. Edgecombe has to say. Shana, as we mentioned before, is the Ecosystem Technical Coordinator for the Access Accelerator Small Business Development Center's Accelerate Bahamas project. As we heard previously at the beginning of the session, Mrs. Edgecombe is also the lead creative with TRAP Consulting, helping creatives and entrepreneurs to map out their businesses through a focus on their profits, marketing, and processes. Shana holds a degree in international business and has studied in the United States, Netherlands, and China. She has earned a certificate in women's entrepreneurship from Cornell University, and is a facilitator with the U.S. Embassy's Academy for Women Entrepreneurs, class of 2021 and 2022. Shana, also an entrepreneur, is the lead designer and owner of By Shana E, which specializes in high-end wedding floral designs. Shana, talk to us.
Good night, everyone. Good night. Protocol having been established. I never used that, so I thought I'd use that tonight. So it's interesting that the conversation thus far has been innovation from a career standpoint, and then innovation, especially for a business, someone who has experience. So I'm going to speak about innovation from the business standpoint. What is business innovation? So one of the things that business innovation does not have to adhere to is technology. A lot of innovation can happen outside of technology. That is something that many people assume when we're talking about innovation. But by definition, business innovation is any process, product, service, or offer that changes the way the business operates and ultimately is meant to drive business growth. So let's get into some examples of non-tech innovation. Customer service. Let's talk about customer service. So let's say that you are someone who has a high touch product or service, something that is a bit more expensive. You deal with a high-end clientele. So maybe they would appreciate something that is more white glove, meaning that, if you sell something expensive, you come and you drop it off and you present it to them and you make this big show of it. That is innovation. Instead of just having their person pick it up and take it, no, you deliver it yourself. You make this big show, this big production of it. That is innovation. Let's look at an SBDC client, Pulpy. Pulpy actually deals with rolled ice cream. And they are innovative because they took a concept from Asia and brought it here. That's innovation. Innovation, again, they don't need a bunch of technology when they're rolling their ice cream. And they started from doing pop-ups and being in their first location, and they've now evolved to being in Sandy Fort. That is their evolution. Now, let's talk about innovation in the food industry. Another client that the SBDC is working on. Now, a lot of people were looking for alcohol, let's be honest, during the pandemic, right? And so what Limeade did was they were able to actually save the business and keep it open by adding alcohol to the products that they were already selling. So they were already an essential service, and then they listened to demand and they added alcohol. That is innovation. Okay, then you have another SBDC client that actually gathers salvage parts of boats, and they actually make new boats. They put everything back together, and that helps them save so much money. Now, that is a bit of technology, but at the same time, again, I'm driving home the point that innovation does not have to be technology based. But now let's talk about technology and innovation. So immediately what comes to mind is a website. We mentioned the pandemic before, or I just did. The fact that many businesses are now open to e-commerce. They now have websites that allow you to shop. Many of us are used to going on Walmart, on Target, and we're used to shopping. And so this introduction of e-commerce came at a really pivotal time, The pandemic actually pushed us, I would say, about 5 to 8 years forward as a country, as far as doing business. Yes, it was painful, absolutely, but there were some good things that came out of it, even down to WhatsApp. There were businesses where you had to walk in a store and hope that the product was there. You had to stand in line outside of the store, maybe for an hour, and hope that the product was there. During the pandemic, because of social distancing and only allowing a certain amount of persons in the store. So the fact that you could actually WhatsApp them and say, hey, do you have this? No, we don't. That saved you a trip. That was technology. There were mail techs, there were barbers and other persons who render services, and you were able to go into your phone and schedule your appointment, and you could even pay. That is technology. There's even a barber who accepts sand dollar and other cryptocurrencies. That's definitely innovative, and he definitely uses technology. Technology is really about driving change in your business in whatever way it is. So even the act of making people pay a deposit, putting that in as a rule, as a new standard operating procedure, that can be innovation. So over the weekend, the SBDC collaborated with Shift the Culture for the Bahamas Development Bikes Business Expo. And so we did a pitch workshop for them. And one of the participants there does custom work, and he doesn't always accept deposits. And we told him, hey, here's the thing. If you are looking for investing, if you're looking for funding, right? We are the SBDC, we facilitate that. If you're looking for funding, you're making it hard on yourself because it's a cash flow issue. And your investors and financial institutions would look at your business kind of funny because you don't make people pay any money before you do work. So your work can take 3 days and they can take 30 days to pay you. Just by virtue of that person putting in the need to pay in full or putting down a deposit before they do any work, that is a form of innovation. So the key really is to decide what makes sense to implement in your business. And you have to make sure that it is a good use of your resources. That is your time or your money. Make sure, like Lashanta said earlier, that you are tracking those changes and you're being consistent. You have to make sure that whatever you implement, you are tracking. Now, for example, you could say that you want to buy this piece of equipment. It might be a $10,000 piece of equipment, and you want to produce 500 pieces of this thing with the equipment versus the 50 that you do manually by hand. Well, you need data to show your sales, to track your sales when you are making the 50. And then you need data to show how that $10,000 piece of equipment has helped your business make more money. That is extremely important. Don't just put in innovation and then you feel like it's done. You have to track to make sure that it was worth it and that you should continue to invest in it. You might find that that $10,000 machine keeps breaking down and it's costing you more money. But if you're not paying attention, you keep fixing it, and you're not thinking about how it's feeding into your bottom line. So you have to be tracking those things. As SMEs in the Bahamas, you have to be willing to grow and evolve. You have to be willing to grow and evolve. The pandemic has shown us that there are external shocks that you cannot control. There are things that happen, like hurricanes, that you cannot control. And so you have to be willing to pivot. There are so many businesses now that have websites that allow you to pay online. Y'all, I don't know about you, but all of a sudden, everyone now can send bank transfer details, whereas before it was cash on delivery, or you have to walk in and pay with cash. That is a part of innovation. Now, one of the things is you don't have to stick to what other persons are doing in your industry. You can look elsewhere. You know, there are persons, for example, who in the fashion industry are doing 3D printing, and 3D printing also applies to construction. So think about how different innovative technologies and non-tech innovation is happening in different industries and how you can adopt those to your business and in your industry. You really need to be intentional about keeping your eyes open to new opportunities. And so let's talk about the SPDC really quickly. The SPDC continues to innovate. How? So there are multiple opportunities. There's the Royal Caribbean Fund, the grant funding. There is the SET program that I mentioned earlier, and the digital training skills program as well that is going on. And so the SPDC continues to evolve, to innovate, and continues to provide programs that help businesses evolve and innovate. At this point, you cannot keep the status quo anymore. It doesn't exist. I don't know about you guys, but I can think of probably 5 old businesses that have closed down in the last 5 to 8 years. In part, more than likely, because they did not innovate. And I'm talking about businesses that have been around for decades, and they were not able to keep up with the times. Okay, so think about it. If a global corporation has to innovate, why do you think you don't have to innovate? It is extremely important. And I want to close with this. MSMEs make up 99% of business licenses. The vast majority of those MSMEs do not make $100,000 in revenue per year. That is a major concern, and it's a major talking point when we're talking about job creation. Because really and truly, that's just sales revenue. That's not even what is left after operating expenses and everything else. So how are you supposed to grow if you're a solopreneur and your business is making $100K or less so that you can expand your team and bring on more people? You are stifled by the ability to create jobs. So you definitely need to be thinking about innovation. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Edgecombe. This again is the session or the part of the session where you can ask questions based on any of the presentations. Please just raise your digital hand. But we do have some questions that came in through private chat. Ms. Edgecombe, how do I get innovative on a budget?
So let me tell you all of those secrets, right? There are a lot of free tools. Work the heck out of free tools and software. That is what I did for years. Before I started using Canva Pro, I was using Canva. And I was learning how to maneuver and use it until I decided that it was worth it to pay the $12 or $14 per month. And y'all might be like, well, it's only $12 or $14. But again, when you're on a budget and you feel every penny, then that makes a big difference. So you should definitely try to find free tools and then lean in and learn them. Don't just become frustrated because you can't figure something out in a day or two. It takes practice. As an entrepreneur, I taught myself how to make graphics, build websites. I even did a floor plan for a store on Canva last week, unintentionally, but I just learned that I have to figure it out if I could not pay for it, or if I needed to do it last minute, which the person asked me to do it last minute. So that's just to answer that question. Patience, free.
Thank you. Also, another question that has come in. What are MSMEs, please?
Yes, so sorry, I just used that acronym and didn't explain. So MSMEs stand for micro, small, medium enterprises. That's micro, small, and medium enterprises. So in the Bahamas, medium is any business that makes less than $5 million revenue, sales. And then small is less than $1 million. And then micro, maybe Mrs. Rutherford-Ferguson, maybe, so I don't remember what the micro threshold is. But many, many businesses fall into micro and small here, most of them.
Thank you. Another question that has come in. What funding is available to evolving an established home business wishing to expand?
So the SBDC has facilitates persons who are looking to get funded. Of course, it is not a simple process of reaching out and then someone says, here, I'll give you $20,000. You do need to go through a business plan process. That is what investors, that is what financial institutions are looking for. They need to see that you have thought through all of your business. If you are already in operation, you need to have past financial history that you can show. You need to show financial projections so that people can see how you intend to make money. The reality is that when you are looking for money, people want to know that they'll get a return on the investment. If at least that you can pay off the loan. Now there is the Royal Caribbean grant, and a grant is money that you don't have to give back. And those are strict guidelines as well that you can find on the website.
Thank you. And just for everyone again, with us this evening, there are links in chat, but when we send out the recording of the webinar, we will also make sure that we include those links for ease of access for you. Another question we have here, excuse me, sorry. I'd like to introduce innovative technology to my small business. How much of my operational budget do I dedicate to innovative improvements?
That is a great question. I honestly don't know if I can answer that question. In part because that's very, very specific. I don't know about your industry, what budget you have in general. So I will say again, like I said earlier, you have to make sure that whatever innovation that you implement, that it makes sense for your business. So for example, you may find that you can get a bank loan for let's say equipment costs $30,000, except that you have to pay it back in what you feel is an unrealistic time, then maybe you should not invest in that equipment right now. Or maybe you need to save up the money from sales and put it towards the equipment, or maybe so that you don't have to borrow a whole $30,000. Maybe you just borrow 10 or 15 that can go towards taking you the rest of the way to buy that equipment. That's a very specific question, but I would definitely say that you can reach out to the Access Accelerator. Maybe they would be able to assist you as well.
Selena, if I may, I would also suggest outsourcing and delegating in terms of innovation. So I use this and I recommend it for especially entrepreneurs. You outsource and delegate things you're not good at, things that don't generate revenue, and things that you don't have time to do. So outsourcing may mean hiring a virtual assistant or a local assistant for a few hours a week, or investing in software like QuickBooks. That's going to save you time and it's going to help you to be efficient with your record keeping and your books. But you can look at everything from, for me, my booking systems are automated. So straight up to the time I sit down to a Zoom call for a consultation, it's already paid for, the money's already in the bank, that's already taken care of, that's automated. If there requires some one-on-one time and interactions, my virtual assistant will handle it. So that's something that I don't have to worry about, and those tasks don't generate don't take away from the revenue technically. So you want to look at outsourcing and delegating.
Thank you so much. That actually leads into the question that we have next. How do I change customer behavior to start giving deposits on my services?
Don't book the service without it. So you kind of have to train the customer. A service cannot be booked without the deposit. So I would follow up 48 hours before and say, hi, I see we have something scheduled, but not confirmed. Can you please, and then you fill in the blank here, whatever the amount is, but you have to train your clients on how to treat you. So that's definitely something you should not be moving forward on if you don't have it in place, if that's something that you require. So that's my suggestion, my recommendation.
So Selena, you're muted.
Sorry, guys. It's getting toward the end of the evening. Our last question, I don't see any further hands up or questions in the chat. Does SBDC offer e-commerce courses?
Great question. So e-commerce course is actually starting next week, Tuesday. It's Tuesday, the 11th. That is through the Digital Skills Training Program. So you can go online to the website. The link just got dropped inside the chat, but it's accessaccelerator.org/digital skills training. That was a tongue twister, but it is in the chat, and it is a 4-week course. It meets twice per week for 3 hours, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6 to 9.
Thank you. This is the last opportunity we will have to ask any of our panelists a question. We are just on our 7:30 mark. So if there are no more questions, I would like to again thank all of our panelists for taking the time out of the very busy schedules. You ladies are well accomplished and very, very busy. So we really do appreciate your time, as well as to all of our participants that took time out of their schedules to sit with us this evening and learn a little bit more about innovation. Just again, a reminder that the emails will be sent out to you within the next week. Once we have compiled the webinar and all of the information, we will send it to the address that you registered with us. So again, good evening, ladies, and thank you very, very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good
Good
evening.
evening.